Chris, Morgan, thanks for hanging out for a minute. My ears are still ringing from the event. How are you guys? We just came off of ViVE. What are your initial thoughts?
I thought it was a great event, Mark. I learned a lot about some of the emerging technologies in the digital health space. It was really great to meet with new people and understand how they're addressing some of the biggest challenges in healthcare and also connect with some people that I hadn't seen in a while.
As Morgan touched on, I think it was a good mix of, folks that we've worked with in the past or folks who saw us at Health in Vegas or Rock Health in San Francisco or Digital Therapeutics Conference or, just some folks from the industry who we've connected with over the years. And I thought the team that put on the event was sharp. It felt cohesive, it felt organized, it felt like the content and participants were, genuinely on the cutting edge of the industry. And it was fun.
So ViVE is actually a relatively young conference. It really surrounds getting new information and having conversations around healthcare IT innovation and business transformations. It's a little different than other conferences such as HIMSS or Health. The attendees were typically senior and executive leaders within the digital healthcare space. And it had a really, really great overall opportunity to really drive engagement and drive growth opportunities within the healthcare space.
And I will add that I don't think I've ever heard as many bluegrass covers of Metallica and AC/DC. So a great touch.
Did you guys get a chance to walk around? What did you see?
Yeah, I think walking around the exhibit hall is really the best way to get a broad overview of innovation within the ecosystem. And for us at Vynyl, that's the best way for us to better understand how to best serve our clients. So I saw a lot of trends within the exhibit hall and the general stages. A lot around cybersecurity, a lot of talks around interoperability, obviously, is a big one. Chronic disease management, remote patient monitoring. So lots of other trends, but those were the real some of the topics that I saw percolate to the top.
Chris, in your discussions with folks, even at the booth, anything you'd want to add there as far as specific blockers or hurdles that you saw popping up among the attendees?
It's a good question. I do think some themes emerged, and I think one thing that's kind of permeating a lot of the culture in health tech right now, and I guess just the culture in health or in technology generally right now, is kind of the macro environment, right? So having been to several of these conferences over the last few years, it did actually feel like kind of good to see a change in tone from, CEOs talking about how big they were going to grow their valuation to how they were going to get to profitable, or, how they were going to drive value for their customers. So things just made a little more sense, I would say, from kind of a business perspective. And that felt just really good and genuine and honest, which was nice. A few other themes I noticed, obviously, AI is everywhere right now, and there were several panels and talks on ways in which companies are exploring AI as it relates to healthcare and health tech. And I think my main takeaway on that front was that despite the buzz there, I think a lot of companies, again, especially in this industry, are exploring AI as a feature, not necessarily a core offering. So I think we're going to start to see sort of AI-enabled, services, AI-enabled products that look to, improve outcomes, increase efficiency, highlight value in new ways. But I don't know that the AI is going to, at least in the near to midterm, be really, kind of the core offering of some of those companies. But that was really interesting, just to see different flavors of how that's being implemented. And then, as Morgan mentioned, I think there was a lot of sort of healthcare at home from panels, from other booths, from announcements. Obviously the big one was the Best Buy and Atrium Health deal. A release, I guess, came out a few weeks ago saying that the Geek Squad might be involved with sort of managing healthcare at home, which is this brave new world of sort of retail giants in healthcare. So pretty cool stuff there. And then, maybe a little bit of a niche, but something that did come up quite a bit was, I think there were several leaders, innovation leaders and whatnot from children's hospitals. And we heard from just our conversations with them, but also from panels that they're very focused on sort of pediatric and adolescent mental health right now, which was, interesting to hear how sort of unaddressed that space is, obviously how prevalent it is and growing. I think one panel moderator said you could build 30 pediatric mental health startups and you wouldn't saturate the market. So I think, just as an indication of how much there is to do there, I thought that was interesting. One other thing I just thought was really fascinating as a health tech nerd, a partner from Initialized Capital tweeted out a few takeaways from a panel that I just thought were fascinating. Her name's Parul Singh, talking about sort of at-home diagnostics, which, again, sort of a subset of the industry, but an increasingly, I think, prevalent and visible one. A few of her sort of takeaways from the panel I thought were just fascinating. So, thinking back to Theranos, it was mentioned that sort of paradoxically pushed the entire industry to make quality control a standard, including speeding up regulation, which, at this point seems to have increased sort of the public's sense of trust and safety with this industry. So I guess thank you, Theranos. In a world where 50% of home tests are not returned to the lab, it's interesting to think about the ways in which patient engagement becomes increasingly, important to get those tests back, to get the patient cared for, to drive the outcomes. And, I think it's also maybe interesting to think about the ways that engagement could be driven by AI in the future. I think that will be a big opportunity there. Speaking of that, all the founders on stage for this particular panel believed ChatGPT will change their companies and pose a big opportunity for better engagement and workflow enablement. I think half the panelists were, they're already experimenting with it. Lastly, it's, in this sort of wide world of kind of healthcare terms and buzzwords and new innovation and whatnot, I think these companies, it can be hard to tell where they start and where they end. Are they a point solution? Are they a platform? Are they full stack? Do they, just contribute to a piece of it? And she noted that it looks like a lot of these companies are going sort of quote unquote full stack. Home diagnostics don't seem to work as point solutions. So each company kind of had developed their own mix of tests, software, clinical support to integrate with customers and provide, flexible sort of holistic support for patients. So I just thought that was a super interesting panel as well. But yeah, those are kind of some of my takeaways. Thanks, Mark.
Morgan, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the collaboration opportunities. You guys were in the booth, nearly pretty much all week long when you weren't out for pre-scheduled meetings. What kind of collaboration opportunities did you see? I know that, you guys have mentioned some of these, some of the big takeaways and some of the types of problems that companies are dealing with. What kind of collaboration opportunities did you see, at the Vynyl booth from people that stopped by?
Yeah, we met with a lot of really interesting and passionate people. A lot of individuals we met had job titles such as, Director of Digital Innovation, Head of Innovation, VP of Experience in Digital Innovation. So it was very innovation focused. But in terms of collaborating with Vynyl, I think the conversations we had really had a broad scope in terms of supporting those potential client needs with either research and product and innovation support, all the way to towards the other end of a product's life cycle in terms of the actual development, deployment, and DevOps maintenance or management of a product. So lots of interesting conversations that we had that in regards to how Vynyl can support clients within the digital health space. I really, really enjoyed learning about the problems that these individuals are trying to solve within their organizations and how Vynyl can help support them and achieve a solution.
So kind of along that same line, how can we help a company become wildly successful? It's in the health tech space or the healthcare space.
We really enjoy working with clients that are leaning into human-centered design type research and understanding of their problem space, and working with them from a product management perspective prior to getting into the weeds with our developers and actually committing code and deploying a product. So ideally, we work with a client that we can work with them at the inception of an idea, test it, iterate on that, prototype it, all the way to the end where we're designing and deploying a product.
On the one hand, as sort of an innovation strategy firm, I think we're good at de-risked innovation processes, programs, approaches, coaching, things like that. How to support maybe a single individual, a single leader within a company to kind of arm them with market expertise or headcount to validate opportunities, or get a kind of a beat on the market, or even connections to other stakeholders within our own healthcare network, down to as Morgan mentioned, maybe someone on the IT side or on the tech side, where maybe they've got a little clearer idea of exactly what they want to build, or what opportunity they want to target with a software intervention. And so it is a kind of a privilege of representing Vynyl in those cases where we feel like we do get to hear all those perspectives, and given our sort of full stack nature, sort of full stack innovation capabilities, I think it's nice to be able to say that we can support them, and credibly say that for many of those opportunities we can I think add a lot of value and really change the situation for them, whether it's through our focus on US based employees with who are sort of at a more senior part of their career, or just our at this point relatively hard won experience and expertise in the healthcare industry. So for these executives and leaders at these different large or small healthcare organizations, and try to find a way that we can help them in almost all cases improve health outcomes of their patient population. So yeah, just a really cool chance to connect with the industry in that way.
So Vynyl had a booth clearly at ViVE this year, and we had kind of a special swag. I don't know, is it swag or is it merch? I think we've talked about this internally. Is it swag? Is it merch? We were giving away records. Morgan, I'll kick it over to you. What was your experience in as it relates to the booth?
There were absolutely people doing a double take. They would kind of walk a few feet past our booth, try and understand what was happening, and then you could see the realization on their face that yes, indeed, we were giving out vinyl records. So it was just a truly delightful experience. It was really fun to get to know people on a more personal level, understand, why they love David Bowie or Bruce Springsteen, or why they want to grab the Dolly Parton album. That in conjunction with learning about, the problems they're trying to solve in digital health, it just made for a really great overall experience. And there were some individuals that came by and they were shuffling through the albums and found a live album that they were at in person back in, 85. So those were the really cool experiences that came out of the booth.
Great, Chris, Morgan, thank you so much for sitting down for a few minutes. And thank you for you all watching. We hope to see you at HIMSS in a few weeks.